my name is Sammy Anderson. I'm our marketing coordinator here at Softcrylic. Welcome to another installment of Ask Softcrylic Anything. With all else equal, the difference between an okay webinar and an outstanding webinar usually comes down to one thing: audience participation. And in our Dashboard in a Day sessions presented through Microsoft, that means one thing: asking questions, like lots of questions. For those of you who have joined us for Dyad sessions, you know it is a full day absolutely packed with content. But the question and answer times during the hands-on labs are where it gets very interesting for both our attendees and our presenter, Corey Turner.
Hey everybody, it's good to see you again. Really excited to be able to come back to you with some answers to a couple of questions here. As you guys know, I lead the data visualization practice here at Softcrylic, and I also am usually the one presenting our Dashboard in a Day sessions. And I have such a great time spending the day with you guys and going through the content, and then also, talking through your use cases and your questions. So I'm really excited to come back to you today with a question that we get asked a lot, and we wanted to show you exactly, how to address this question.
Yeah, so Corey, Chris asks, how would you switch a data source from a local file-based prototype to a production backend?
Okay, yeah, this is a cool question. And this is one that we talk around a lot during Dyad, but we don't actually usually dig into exactly what we do. But it's completely possible. And so let's spend a few minutes really quickly talking about how it's done. Let me share my screen. And Sammy, is that showing up?
Yep, I can see it.
Awesome, great. So for anybody that's been in our Dyad session, you recognize this. This is the report that we end up with at the end of the day. It's based on Microsoft supplied lab data for this fictional Van Arstel company. So I'm not giving away the farm here or anything or showing you anything confidential. Everybody who's made it through the entire day at Dashboard in a Day has seen this report, except for not this one exactly, because the one that we work with in Dashboard in a Day is all based on file-based data that sits on your laptop folder. In fact, we're very careful to put it in a specific folder so that everything works the way it's supposed to. But what I've done in preparation for today's video is to retool this so that actually, instead of pulling the data from folders on my hard drive, it's actually pulling the data from our Redshift servers, our Redshift cluster that sits in the cloud. And it doesn't have to be Redshift, of course. This could be Azure. This could be any sort of cloud-based, database backend that you've got available to you. Let's take a quick look at how we do this. In our first session of the Dyad, we spend a good bit of time covering how to connect to, clean, and transform the data. So I've gone back to that section really of the lab content and revisited all the Power Query work that we did there. And if you guys remember, we went in and we loaded the data, and then we had to do some transformations on it to make it all work. And I didn't want to lose any of that effort that we'd put into it. It took us about 45 minutes in the class to do all those steps. If you are working on your own data, you may have a good many steps more than that, even more work that you've done. And you don't really want to recreate that from scratch just because you're changing the connection on the database. So what I've done is I've gone into Power Query and I've manually edited the query scripts that we were created in the class to, instead of pointing to the file-based locations on my laptop, they now point to the cloud. And so what I'm going to do here is show you what, so on your screen here, this is the initial query that was written by Power Query, the Power Query GUI, as we did all of our steps. And we don't spend a lot of time diving too deeply into what's going on under the hood. I think in a lot of the dyads, I'll show you guys this, but we really don't look at it too carefully. But what this is M. This is M script. This is the code that Power Query creates as you're using the GUI to do all those steps. And you can edit this directly. This is a screenshot here because I wanted to make sure that I was keeping everything confidential that needed to be kept confidential. But the fact that this is exactly what we generate as part of the class. And let me walk you through this just really quickly here. Our initial couple of lines of code are all about where the data is actually located. And if you see on line 2 here, where we have the source equals, we have some language that talks about what kind of source that is, but then we have that file contents and the actual location on my laptop hard drive where that file lives. And then there's a couple of lines after that there's six lines after that that detail the transformations that are done on that data. The way M works is that the output of each line is piped down to the next one, and the subsequent line references that previous step. So you see the line 2, it says source equals, and in line 3 it says promoted headers equals, and then there's a function table.promote headers, and then inside the our parentheses there, the first statement where it says source, that is actually referring to the previous line, which is called source. So if we want to edit these scripts to point to another location, we can go in and manually edit the M script to look something like this. Now this is the one that I generated in that I tweaked to point to our Amazon Redshift resources instead. And you can see in this one, the source statement is an Amazon Redshift.database. There's a subsequent line that refers to the schema in the database. So that's that TMP objects. It shows what schema to access. And then the third line is US sales 1 equals a specific table, the US sales data within that schema. So you need those 3 lines in Power Query to reference the location of your cloud database. Once you've done that and gotten that, Power Query is going to pop up and ask you to authenticate against that database, and you'll put in your credentials. Once you've done that, you can then copy and paste the rest of the code that was in your initial file-based query after that, and just adjust the pointer in the first one. In this case, it's in line 5. Adjust that pointer where I've got this table.rename columns function. I'm pointing it to US sales 1, which is the name of the function in the previous row on row 4. I did have to do a little bit of tweaking on this in order to make it work. It's not completely always just going to be drag and drop. The places where I had some breakage were the fact that my Amazon column names were not capitalized the same way that my file-based column names were. So that I had to tweak. You have to make sure that your column names are exactly the same. So you would want to insert a step right after you source the data to make sure that your column names are exactly the same as they were in the file-based data. You also need to take great pains to make sure that you've set the data types to be exactly the same as they are in the file-based data. It's possible that the type auto detection won't pick it up quite the same way. And so you want to make sure that that happens as well. But once you've done that, it's very straightforward. And so going back to our Redshift report here, you can notice I have all the exact same tables that we built as part of Dyad. They all output the same. That data is imported into the Power BI file, the actual PBIX file, exactly the same. And all the calculations that we did And all the fields that we assigned to all the different places in the report all worked pretty seamlessly. Again, I did have to go back and do a little tweaking here. It didn't work 100%, just automatically. I did have to go back and massage column names and column types in order to make this work. But if you look, I can show you in Power Query itself. The way that I sort of attacked this problem is that down here you can see that I duplicate this. Our initial queries are the ones that I want to edit, because all the work that we've done on the front end, all the work that we did in sections 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 in Dyad, I didn't want to lose that work. So I wanted to edit those queries. But I wanted, in order to get this right, I first duplicated them, made sure that I had a copy of the old file-based queries, and then I brought in these native tables from our Redshift so I could look at those and look at, what I needed to cut and paste into the original queries in order to make it work. But again, you guys have asked me about this a couple times, and everything in this report works exactly as it did in Dyad. And if you remember in Dyad, the data story we were trying to tell was all about Australia, right? So if we click and we drill down into Australia, there we go. And then if we go and look, if we go over and actually, let's do this. If we drill and if we right click on Australia and we drill through to the by manufacturer page, and then we make sure that we're looking just at Van Arstel, which we are. And if you look at, we've got that spike in 2019, just like we expected. It looks a little different because this report's showing 2020, and we don't have 2020 data in our lab, but it's the exact same data set, and it tells the same story that it did when we worked with it in class. I hope that makes sense. If you guys have further questions about how to make this work for you and for your data set, by all means, reach out to me. You guys know I love to talk shop. I love to talk with you about this. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Thanks, Sammy.
Thank you.